They told me the Orpheum only felt haunted because it was old single screen, velvet seats, a ceiling mural that shed stars like dandruff. I was the night manager, which meant I locked up, counted drawers, and kept the projector from eating whatever indie print we were brave enough to show. The last Tuesday of the month was inventory night. No shows, no staff, just me, a thermos of stale coffee, and the low electrical hum of a building too tired to sleep. I'd almost finished when I found a dented metal canister jammed behind the projector rack. No label, just a grief pencil scrawl. Midnight, do not run. I laughed. Of course. I popped it open. The film smelled like vinegar and melted pennies, too far gone for a paying crowd, but curiosity has better marketing than common sense. I threaded it anyway. The take-up reel spun like a hungry mouth. On my headset, the lobby radio hissed with static, a habit it had even when turned off. "You're alone," I told it and hit the lamp. At first, nothing but leader, cue marks, scratches like sleet. Then picture, not the artsy nonsense I expected. The Orpheum, this theater, but wrong. The upholstery on the seats wasn't the wine red I knew, it was faded blue. The exit signs had round bulbs instead of LEDs. The camera angle was fixed wide from the screen, looking back at the audience as if the film itself had eyes. I leaned closer to the porthole. On screen, the audience sat in neat rows, all facing me. No faces, not really just oval, pale blurs like someone forgot to finish them. And yet, as I watched, a few heads turned toward the booth. Toward me. I killed the sound. Didn't matter. The film produced its own hush, a pressure that pushed into my ears until I could hear my own blood. In the house, the real seats were empty. In the film, they were full. Something shifted in the booth air, an after-smell of rain and dust. I told myself it was old acetate off-gassing. I told myself a lot of things when the lights dimmed. I let the film run. Row by row, the blurred audience lifted their hands and pressed them to their chests, right where a ticket stub would be. I glanced at the desk. My stack of stubs rustled, though no vent was blowing. One slid free and drifted to the floor. I didn't pick it up. Halfway through the reel, the image jumped a splice. The house on screen emptied. The camera angle didn't change, but time did. The blue seats were charred, fabric bubbled. The aisle sconces were melted teardrops. Smoke smeared the ceiling where the mural had been. The Orpheum had a fire once, back in the 70s. The manager's plaque in the lobby mentions it without details. Tragic loss, it says. Reopened with renewed spirit. Cute. My headpiece crackled. A voice that was mine and not mine said very softly, "House to booth." It sounded like the old gag we did on Halloween, when we ghosted the speakers for fun. Except I hadn't patched the house, and the board was dark. "Who's on?" I asked the empty radio because pretending you're not alone sometimes fools the dark. The film cut again. I saw myself. Not me, exactly my jacket, my haircut, my stance in silhouette in the aisle under seat H13. The angle was still from the screen, looking out. I glanced down into the real house, empty. Back to the film, there I was, or would be, standing exactly where the aisle met the half wall. I checked the wall clock above the exit sign. Its minute hand twitched, stubborn as old metal. I didn't like the way the image waited. I shut the lamp. The booth went dark. The screen should have too. It didn't. The ghost light of the film kept playing without the projector. The picture's edges bled past the frame, crawling onto curtains and ceiling. In that unlight, something moved in the front row, a black smudge uncurling from the armrest like smoke. The radio whispered again, house to booth. Take your mark. I told myself to go down the stairwell, out the side door, call the owner and make it his problem. Instead, I opened the booth door. The corridor outside held the chill of a freezer. My breath showed. As I stepped into the house, the carpet's old soda tack reached for my shoes. The screen's image sharpened, and the frayed velvet smell deepened, until it tasted like pennies. Seat H13 sat halfway down, dead center. It had a small burn in the arm cigarette scar from when people still smoked through tragedies. As I reached the row, the film replaced my shadow with something taller. The screen showed me standing where I stood, but a half-second slow, my movements lagging like a bad stream. Then my double tilted its head toward me, a degree my neck refused to match. "Okay," I said, because people talk to mirrors. "Okay." The double raised its hand. I didn't. Behind me, the exit door's crash bar clicked, the sound of a held breath released. I turned. Red exit glow painted the aisle in surgical color. Nothing there but chill. When I faced the screen again, the front row was occupied. Pale ovals where faces should be. Not many, maybe 5. Maybe a crowd, if you counted each shape, twice. I backed into the aisle. The red glow strobed. Old wiring jittered. The audience on screen leaned forward as if to hear. From the speakers that should have been dead, I heard it. House tone, that soft blanket of recorded silence theaters lay under everything. Only it wasn't silent. There were breaths in it. A cough that didn't end. A laugh clipped in half and looped like a broken toy. The double stepped into the aisle in the film. I stepped back. We were no longer sensed. He moved when I didn't. I moved, and his delay grew like a rubber band between us, stretching to a whine. The screen bulged. Not a trick. Fabric bowed like something behind it pressed a palm outward. A flat handprint bloomed where a face should have been. The audience on screen lifted their right hands again, as if pledging to the dark. I understood suddenly the thing the lobby plaque didn't say. Some screenings never ended. They just changed shape. I ran for the booth. The steps felt longer than they were, risers multiplying under my feet. In the glass of the porthole, the house behind me glowed with unauthorized light. I slammed the door, threw the dowel into the jamb, and cut power at the mains. Silence crashed down, the kind that lets small sounds live. From the projector drum, a single frame twitched. The take-up reel coasted to a stop, film slack drooping like a tongue. The radio crackled. "Booth," said my not voice. "Take your mark." "No," I said aloud. My hand shook on the breaker. "Show's over." A soft knock sounded behind me. Not on the door. On the glass? The porthole window that looked into the house carried a smudge. 5 prints pressed in from the other side. They slid slowly downward as if something without weight was learning gravity. I didn't look. I gathered the unlabeled reel, stuffed it back into the can, and duct-taped the lid. I carried it to the roof access and left it under the tar-smelling night. When I came back down, I turned every light to full, dragged a folding chair into the aisle, and sat in it until dawn washed the screen in honest gray. At opening time, the morning crew found me with the film log in my lap. I wrote a note for the owner. Do not run retire projector. I knew he wouldn't. The Orpheum chews through managers and ghost stories in equal measure. The plaque in the lobby will someday include my name under renewed spirit, and some kid will laugh and thread a forbidden reel because curiosity is cheaper than hiring 2 ushers. That night I locked up early. I turned at the door to glance back at the screen, a habit, like checking your pockets for keys you already touched. The picture was off. The velvet was dull. The auditorium was empty. Seat H13 had a drink cup in the holder, sweating water it didn't contain. And on the screen's dead fabric, a handprint lingered one breath longer than the light should have allowed. Outside, the marquee flickered, a toothless smile against the street. The wind pushed a poster free. It slapped the glass and stuck there. Coming soon midnight. No title. No rating. No common sense. I told myself I wouldn't be there. I told myself a lot of things, walking fast into the honest noise of the city. Behind me, in a building too tired for the living, the hush swelled, filling its lungs, practicing my name. I close the Orpheum every night, count the till, chain the side doors, sweep the aisles. It's muscle memory right up until the part where I have to walk past row H and pretend I don't glance at seat 13. Tonight I found a ticket there. Not one of ours thick, black stock with silver embossing. Midnight, no date, no barcode. I slipped it into my pocket and told myself to log it later. After lights out, the theater keeps a faint breath. Exit signs humming, projector booth cooling, the screen a pale rectangle of nothing. I was halfway up the aisle when a soft thump came from H13, like someone sat down without asking. I swung my phone's flashlight. Empty chair. The cushion, though, slowly rose as if pressure had just lifted. Closing time, I said, because talking is a rope you throw yourself. Another sound drifted down, muffled, steady. She, not the air system. Closer, like fingers brushing fabric. I stepped into row H seat 13's armrest, carries an old cigarette burn. I touch it every night without thinking. Tonight my fingers came away damp, smelling like pennies. I wiped them on my pants and kept moving. Up in the booth window, a pale shape passed. I had the booth key. No one else should be there. When I looked again, I only saw my reflection and the glass breathing with the theater's leftover heat. The stage curtain shifted. No draft, all vents were off. The fabric bellied once, tender as a sigh, and went still. I pointed the light at the screen and almost laughed dust motes. That's all. Then a handprint bloomed on the dead white. 5 faint ovals spreading from the center as if pressed from behind the screen. It faded. Another appeared lower, near where a face would rest if someone leaned in and listened. The ticket in my pocket warmed. I pulled it out. The word midnight had smudged, letters softening into a gray bruise. On the back, a dry imprint I swear hadn't been there. H13. Enough, I said, louder. Sound fell straight down, swallowed by carpet. I backed toward the exit. The crash bar clicked, not pushed, just readied, like a held breath. From behind me, she again, now threading between seats, coming faster. I refused to turn. If you turn, you give it a shape. If it has a shape, it has a path. At the door, my key scraped the lock. The metal was colder than it should have been. Over my shoulder, the aisle sconces flickered once and steadied. In that one blink, the theater felt crowded, like everyone who'd ever sat through a bad ending had come back to wait for a better one. I pushed the bar. The door didn't open. A polite knock sounded from the other side. 3 taps. I took my hand off the bar, and it swung toward me on its own, just a finger's width, then stopped, as if something had changed its mind. I put the ticket on the usher's tray and left it there, a little altar to common sense. "You can have your seat," I said to the empty room. "Keep it." As I turned away, the tray slid an inch. The ticket had moved, edge hanging off like it wanted to jump. I didn't help it. I stepped outside into honest city noise. Neon buzzed, real and stupid. When I checked my pocket for my phone, my fingers brushed paper. Another ticket. Black, silver letters, crisp and dry, midnight H14. I looked back through the glass. Inside, row H was still. Seat 13 seemed a shade deeper than the rest. Cushion slightly bowed, as if someone had shifted their weight. To the next chair, I walked home without checking my pockets again. It's easier to lock a door than a thought. It was my 3rd month working nights at the Orpheum. The manager said the projection room was the heart of the theater, but it felt more like its lungs, always exhaling dust and humming like something half alive. Last night, the 11:30 show ended early. The crowd trickled out, leaving popcorn snow across the carpet. I went up to the booth to shut everything down. That's when I noticed the second reel spinning, though no one had loaded it. The projector whirred on its own. On the screen below, light flickered through the half-closed curtain. A movie was playing, but the seats were empty. Curiosity beat caution. I leaned closer to the viewing glass. The film showed the theater itself, just as it was now, same red curtains, same empty rows. Only in the picture, one seat wasn't empty. Row G, seat 7. Someone sat there still as a photograph. I checked the real theater. Row G was empty. I turned back. The figure on the screen raised its head slowly, like it knew I was watching. The projector groaned, light flickering harder, metal gears grinding like teeth. I pulled the switch to shut it off, but it didn't stop. The image bled, the figure standing now, walking up the aisle toward the booth's point of view. My own reflection trembled in the glass. Then the door behind me clicked. I spun around, no one. But on the desk lay a ticket stub that hadn't been there before. It was damp and blackened around the edges, letters half burned. Admit 1, projection. When I looked back through the glass, the screen showed only the booth, and inside it me. Except I wasn't moving.